Alrighty. So, just to briefly recap on what we did to set up the Vault project. We went to projects. We created a new project, Vault project. We're going to, instead of using the dot 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 to select a folder, we're just going to highlight inventor / project name, delete that, and create DFTG 2402. And the project name I've been using is Howl V Twin engine. Kim may have y'all using something else. So you can say next or finish, because we're not using any pre-selected libraries. And I already have one named. The project name doesn't, I believe, but the folder that you're going to be placing everything in does, just so that you don't have multiple folders up on the Vault. Otherwise, we get multiple folder names. So I'm just going to use number 2 just for purposes of this demonstration. So, and then under the little workspace, once we've created it, we're going to edit this by clicking this little pencil thing over here. Replace all of that with a dot because it uses relative path, so a dot slash represents this path, the start path, and then we'll be creating a folder under that called Howl V Twin. And then we'll save it. You'll get a little migration thing. Say yes, and done. So we've created a new project. We're then going to go to the Vault tab. We're going to log into Vault using your login. It may remember your login if you've logged in once before. So you can just say OK, otherwise you'll retype in everything. So we'll connect to the Vault. Once you see the logout light up, you can click the access and you'll click map folders. And you get this project folder mapping box. So what this is doing is this is mapping the Vault folder to your local folder, telling Inventor that when you check in things and check out things from the Vault, it's going from that local, the remote folder, the Vault folder, to your local workspace folder. So the project root, and this is why I had y'all create a DFTG 2402 folder on your home folder, is because it'll sync to this. That'll be your root folder, your project root. And then you'll do Content Center, and that'll sync to here. So once you get both those, you can say OK. Your folders are now mapped. You can verify it if you want by looking at your project again. And if you look at the very bottom under Vault Options, you'll now see virtual folders pointing to this, whereas before it was pointing to nothing. But that's just if you want. Otherwise, you can do open, and you'll notice when you open that most likely you don't have anything in there, just because y'all probably been working in a separate folder, or if you are working in a separate folder for future reference, you'll end up copying things over, moving things over, whatever. But what you want to make sure you're doing whenever you're doing with a Vault is make sure you're working in the workspace folder. I've had it sometimes when I was testing this out. I would open and it would open me up in a folder that I was in last. And especially for me, I had a whole bunch of Howl V Twin engine folders, copies of copies of copies while I was doing my testing. And it'd get confusing. So you want to make sure you're in your workspace. So sometimes you'll be somewhere else, and you can just click workspace. This should turn out blue, and you'll know. But Kim, do you have anything? Did she disappear? Anything in your U drive that I can use? I can go grab my flash drive. I've got something on my flash drive if you want. This one? Okay. That? Okay. So I'm just going to copy this to my workspace folder, but in here. So I called it DFTG2402. And in here, yeah, so I still have one, you'll find the folder, that workspace folder. So this folder here actually relates to, when I'm looking at my project, this folder here, this workspace folder, is actually this folder. That's what that relates to. So we're going to copy it into here. When I go back to Inventor, say done. So see, I'm in my workspace, and there's my part that I just copied in there. So I can say open, and it's looking for a part from Kim's. Woo! Yeah, sorry. There we go. So open, actuator base. You may get this if it was an old part. Y'all shouldn't have it problem because y'all created it. But if you ever get this, it's nothing to worry about. You just say yes. So here's my part, just like you were used to. Big thing we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the Vault tab. And you should now, because we have this file open, this little check-in box should show up. So this checks in a file or adds a new file into the Vault folder, or what they call the virtual store. So we're going to check it in. You'll see some options like you'll see the file itself. Here's the project it's related to. Here's my actual folder, and as you can see, so this is the folder that's in Vault, and it's actually going to put these 3 items into the Vault. And this is why I recommend all of y'all should have the same workspace folder name, because otherwise you'll have multiple folders underneath this 2402 folder, which I'll show you more in detail about that in a little bit. There are 2 options. If you're going to continue working with it and you don't want, you're going to make changes, you can keep the file checked out so no one else can check it out. Or if you don't need it anymore, which I wouldn't recommend doing this, you can actually close the file and it'll delete your local copy. So the copy in the Vault is the only one that's there. So this could be problematic later on. So I would not check that one if you can. There's really nothing under settings you need to worry about. By default, if you're doing an assembly, it includes all children of the assembly. But like if you have a sub-assembly and you want to include the parents and you've picked the sub-assembly, you can tell it to pick parents, but that can get complex. Everything else you can leave by default. And this, I wouldn't mess with. I've never used that. You can add comments if you want, but no big deal. You'll say OK. It's sending the file. Depending on the size of the file, it'll be, rather quick. So I'm going to click this Autodesk Vault here. You can also get it from Start menu, of course. Here we go. And it's not going to be under Vault. It's under Data Management. It's really kind of misnomer, if you will. So Vault Basic, that's this. So this is the actual Vault client. What we've been using this whole time is the Inventor Vault add-in. So it's a little add-in that allows Inventor to work with Vault, but Vault itself is a standalone client, standalone product. So we're going to log into the Vault again. So this gives us a view of just Vault itself, the insides of the Vault, the store on the database. So in here we've put this, I've created a DFTG2402 folder by default and this content center file. And if you remember when we did map folders, and that's going to read only, that's what we picked. Those two folders relate to these two. And you can see this little dollar sign. You may have wondered why it showed up as a dollar sign here earlier. That's the root folder. Alright, so in this DFTG 2402 folder, at the moment, because my folder was a little bit different name than the test folder I did with Amanda a minute ago, there are two separate folders. And this is why I recommend y'all all using the same folder name. It's because then should go all into the same folder, instead of creating an individual folder for each person who does an upload. So you'll also see that these are all the projects that have been uploaded that are associated with associated with parts that we've checked in or uploaded. This was hers, and this is mine that I just did. It's always going to upload the project that it's associated with. Otherwise, if it doesn't upload it, it actually breaks the association with the parts. So if we look inside this folder, you'll see my part that I uploaded a minute ago. And if you select it, you can actually see a thumbnail. You can see file name, what version, who created it, when it was last checked in, any comments I put in. You can see if it's part of a subassembly, how many direct children it has. And you can see and open each part individually. You can find out where it's been used. So where this part, who has a parent of this, where this part is in use instead of what's used in it. And then you can actually preview the file, which is really nice. You can actually look at the part and spin it around. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. You can actually print this as it is. So what I was reading about was people who do Vault projects typically work with both this window and the Inventor window up all the time, side by side. You almost never browse your files via, Windows Explorer, like you normally would going to your U drive. You would almost always use Vault Explorer, which is what this is called, to browse your files, if you will. And you would open them from here. So you wouldn't download it and keep a copy locally and then open it from the local. You'd just open it and it would download it and you'd never know where it went. So I already have this, but let's close it. So if I have a part up in the vault and I want to get that part, like today's a new day and I need to go update it, I can go to Vault, and once I'm logged in, I can say open. And it may take a little bit because it's basically talking to the Vault, finding out what's there and getting a list. So you can see all the folder names, and I'm going to go into this folder, which is where I put mine, and there is that file, and I can say open. And you can actually, if you just want to get a copy of it but you don't want to check it out, like you're not making changes, you're just getting a copy to work with, you can read only. You can check out this part, you can check out every part that you need. I'm going to check it out just so you can see what that's like. So it's going to check out this part. So it's going to download a copy to me, which it will do regardless of whether or not you do a checkout or a read only. But then it's also going to mark it in the Vault as checked out. I'm going to get that a little again. So over here back in Vault, I'm going to refresh, and you're going to see right here there's a little check mark. Easy enough to tell. That file has been checked out, if you will. And you'll also see now down here in the history, because I have checked it out now, that automatically makes that checked out copy a new version. So when I check it back in, which is the only way it's going to release it, allow other people to get it, that basically means it's a new version. So that's why you'll see a new version here. But as you can see, it hasn't been checked in yet. So there's a new version, but it's not available. So we'll go back to Inventor. I'll go back to Vault. I'm not going to make any changes. Um, you can download a copy, but I don't believe you can check out a copy. That's one thing I didn't get around to checking all that too much. So I'm going to check this in real fast. So just like we did the first time, we don't really need to check any of those boxes. We just say OK. It's going to check it back in. Come back to Vault. I can do a refresh, and you'll see it's no longer checked out. And, oh, interesting. Right, because I haven't made any changes. Yeah, so if I had made changes, it would be a version 2. And when you check it out, it's still going to be at version 2 because somebody has it out, and it's basically changes in Potentia, possible changes. So, I don't know what much else I can show you. This is about as far as I got with Vaults. I didn't have much else to look into, only because I didn't know what it would be used for. Other than simple parts. But I will be learning as much as y'all whenever y'all have problems, of course. Or whenever you try and do new things and we just don't know how to do it yet. So, any questions? No? Cool? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.